get set for the action. Once again, welcome to the PCR Action Track. My name's Alan Edworthy.
My name's Dennis Newland.
This is Lance Wilson.
And this is the PCR Action Track.
Doesn't he do it good? On the card. Cars on deck at the moment, of course, from the Vintage Speed Car Association of New South Wales. And the vintage speed cars appearing tonight are owned by members of that association. And the club was formed in 1983 by enthusiasts of the open cockpit days. And there's now a branch in Queensland. And a few enthusiasts in Melbourne are also thinking of a branch club. So it's moving along nicely, the vintage speed car movement. And anyone wishing to join should contact the association at Post Office Box 73 in Wentworthville. 2145, but I believe the cars will be on display at the completion of the meeting, and folks will be able to wander down there and have a look. And Don Reed is the contact down there, but there's a whole host of the officials from the Vintage Speed Car Association. You can see Donnie down there in person a little later on tonight, or you can phone him on 636-2990. 636-2990. If vintage speed cars were part of your speedway world, certainly go down and speak to Don or any of the friendly folk from the Vintage Speed Car Association. And it certainly is a boy, oh boy, Dennis, they're so dedicated.
Oh, they certainly are. They've really got behind this movement, and the nostalgia is unbelievable. And the club is growing in strength, and it's amazing over the last 18 months or so how many cars they have discovered the whereabouts of. And some of the great race cars of the great speed car era of days gone by. And it's the New South Wales Vintage Speed Car Association that has really been responsible for finding a lot of the race cars that were nothing more than just a memory until the association came along.
Oh, it's been a fabulous saviour. It's almost like a heritage situation, and national heritage of the speed car racing. And Dennis, what do we know about the 65 car? We're told it's a Sid Middlemas, but I can't pick the car.
Yes, indeed. It looks like
it's an Offenhouser. We got that.
It's an Offie, and Lance Wilson just actually telling us here it's the Merle Bettenhausen race car of the 1969-70 era. And of course, Merle drove this car in Australia and New Zealand. Also had there too, of course, is the number 25 Eric Kidd Offie, and
George Tatnell at the wheel.
And of course, George Tatnell, as you say, Alan, yes. And of course, the Eric Kidd Offie, there's quite a story with that, of course, one of the very famous race cars. And of course, out now on the racetrack is probably one of the most famous Offenhausers of all time, the Ray Revell Offenhauser, beautifully restored by Eric Inman.
And that's the owner and rebuilder of the car, Eric Inman, in the cockpit at the moment. Eric is well known to Speedway fans from seasons gone by as the #1 pit crew gopher, the whole bit for the Ray Revell team for something like 35 years, ever since he was in short pants. And he is the #1 Ray Revell fan, and he searched right throughout Australia and New Zealand and parts of America to gather together all the missing parts of that beautiful race car and resurrect it into an absolute showpiece of Australian and American speedway history. That's Eric Inman in the car that took Ray Revell to five Australian speed car championships in the post-war era. And it certainly is a credit to Eric Inman. It's absolute joy to see that car on each and every one of its appearances. Back to the Eric Kidd car. This was built by Eric Kidd. It was built wholly and solely for the late Jeff Freeman, who unfortunately was killed before he ever fired a shot in the car. And it never fired a shot in anger. It's never been raced. And it's kept in immaculate condition by Eric Kidd. And that's George Tatnell at the wheel in the number 25 Offenhauser. It's a replica of the American Curtis Craft car, I think, Dennis?
Yeah, that's right, Alan. It is indeed. And of course, as you say, that's correct. Quite a bit of history with that car. Never raced. Beautifully prepared. Beautifully built. And of course, was to be driven by Jeff Freeman, but as history reveals, on the 9th of May 1965, Jeff Freeman lost his life at the Westmead Speedway, and Eric Kidd never ran the car.
Okay, we've got a green light and racing, should I say, a fast display from the Vintage Speed Car Association. George Tatnell up on position 1 in the Eric Kidd number 25 Offenhauser. And tucked right in behind in car number 65 is Sid Middlemas.
Well, perhaps we should use a phrase better known in the 60s as a high-speed dress parade. That was a well-known, well-worn phrase in the year of the 60s in speed car racing. As you said about Eric Inman, of course, that fabulous Raravell Offenhauser, a beautifully restored job there. Eric, in fact, Alan, you know, he travelled to New Zealand to get parts of that car where it was formerly owned by Roger Johns. Of course, the history of the car, it was built in 1938 by Bob Pankratz out of California for a Los Angeles garage proprietor, Johnny Belch. And the car was driven by Perry Grimm, and Cal Knight even had a drive of the car. Perry Grimm in the car won the 1947 American Midwestern Championship in the car before it came to Australia, and Ray Revell took over the car, of course, brought it to Australia, and one of his very first wins in the car was the 1949 Queensland Speed Car Championship at the Brisbane Exhibition Ground. But of course that was only a prelude to what was in store when Ray Revell took the car to 5 Australian title victories. That's the blue and white number 1 Ray Revell Offenhauser, driven by the man who's restored it, Eric Inman.
Now he's...
Of course, the driver's out on the track purely for demonstration purposes only. And of course, George Tatnell giving the Eric Kidoffe a bootful down into turn number 3. Beautifully prepared Offenhauser, this car, of course. As we said, the car that never raced. Of course, the number 65, the blue and white race car, formerly brought to Australia by the American driver Merle Bettenhausen. According to our information, in number 9, of course, car number 9 out there too is Don Reed, and Don is one of the men instrumental in forming the Vintage Speed Car Association of New South Wales.
Dennis, one of the saddest things about Australian Speedway today is that the Offenhauser sound is no longer here.
Well, it is really very sad for all of us who remember the great days of the 60s at the Sydney Showground. And fabulous speed car racing, great speed car racing, and boy, let me tell you, if you didn't see it, you certainly missed quite a show. Fabulous speed car racing from a fabulous era, and anything up to 8, 9 Offenhausers on a big occasion fronted for speed car racing at the Sydney Showground, and that familiar roar and bark of the Offenhauser midget, long since gone virtually in Australian speed car racing, as technology has changed and we see the likes of Volkswagens and other power plants, Sescos, Chevy 2s, taking the place of the former great Offenhauser.